Calling this meeting March 8th, 2022 of the Colerain Township Community Improvement Corporation in session. I can't remember, Mr. McRae, do you do a roll call or does Mr. Mills?
I can do the roll call. It's
Okay.
fine. Yep. All right. Because this is a new board, because it resets every 2 years, the only members that are present are the three of you, so I'll just call your roll, okay? Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
And Ms. Ulrich? Here. Awesome.
All right, we have been provided in our meeting packet minutes from the October 26, 2021 meeting. Are there any questions or concerns with regard to those minutes or any motions with regard to those?
I would motion that we approve the minutes from the October 2021 meeting.
I'll second. Is there any discussion?
None from me.
Seeing and hearing none, we will go to a vote.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes?
And Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
All right, item number 3 is citizen address. Okay, come, I don't, we haven't done the forms for this, but come on up, so. Okay.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you once again for allowing citizens' address to be on the agenda for the C.I.C. meeting. I'd like to start off with submitting my application to be on the board of C.I.C.
Thank you.
A few things I'd like to go over on the agenda. Under new business, item A, the bylaws that you all are redoing perhaps this evening states that the meeting should happen on or before December 15th. I was wondering why the delay was that in the meeting starting on that time. And if the board could give me a little insight as to why the delay and the date. On item B under new business, election of officers. I kind of, as a resident, disagree with the appointment. All three of the people that are being appointed this evening are employees of the township. They do not live in the township. And I believe that residents deserve a right to serve on any board in Colerain Township and that it should be opened up to residents. I'd like to know if any applications have been received for the C.I.C. Board of Trustees or to the C.I.C. board members besides mine that was just submitted to Mr. Wallert. I'd also like to know who will be able to vote on the issues. Will it be just the 3 Board of Trustee members, or will votes also be done by employees, paid employees of the township? I'm not in agreement with the choice of the treasurer for the C.I.C. This particular employee seems to have great difficulty in completing tasks at hand and posting documents online for residents to review in a timely manner. We are now into March of 2022, and there are no documents in the financial departments for this year as of yet. Since the hiring of this employee, also we have outsourced a lot of our accounting practices to Plattenberg for the township and for the C.I.C. Just for a record of note, the balance of the C.I.C. as of 12/31/2001 is $66,038.31. Nowhere is that mentioned in the agenda packet or in any previous meetings of what the balance is of the funds. Under new business, I'd like to know if the C.I.C. has paid for the directors and operators insurance for 2022. If so, why? I think it's a waste of money. Most employees and elected officials would already be covered under the township's liability insurance, so I think that's just a double payment. I'd also ask that the township and the C.I.C. update the website for C.I.C. resolutions, finances, and other matters. Nothing has been shared on that website since 2020. At the meeting on 10/26/2021, a discussion took place about 2 properties, 2684 Winning and 8725 Planet. Questions were asked about the sale and transfer of this property. Mr. Mills stated that the paperwork had been submitted to Hamilton County Auditor, but it was frustrating that these things take time. On 11/8/2021, through Public Records request, I requested the documents obtaining or pertaining to these sales of properties. The response I received was no records responsive to your request. On 12/22/2021, I also submitted a public records request asking for the same information and got the same reply. No records are responsive to this request. So if it was filed in October and I asked for it in November and December, but we didn't have any record of it, seems a little odd to me. The discussions about these parcels have been halted. Why isn't it on the agenda today? What is the process in selling these going ahead? Why haven't they been handled as a vacant lot to side yard program? I'm not sure if everyone on the board is aware of this program that was implemented by Mr. Mills back in 2000, I believe. There's been one of those that happened, and I might add that it was very unsuccessful, even though you all might rant about it. The Township and the C.I.C. actually lost money on the deal. Tonight I see that we're appointing a new executive director to the C.I.C. I'm curious as to why the change. Mr. Mills has been on and off since his employment here in 2013 until current. Just wondering why all of a sudden the change. The C.I.C. has had 6 transactions in 2021. We have outsourced an accounting firm for handling it. Why? 6 transactions. I could do it, and I can barely add. One of those was to get more checks. One of the transactions was for the directors and operators insurance. One to the state auditor, and for a loss of $6,979.37. Put us in the hole in 2021. If you go back to 2022, transactions, there were 10. One for the directors and operators insurance, Platinumberg, which is the outsourcing firm that handles the financials, 2 water bills that were on property we didn't own, and one was unknown transaction for a loss of $3,097.92. So I just think that transparency is something that's lacking in the C.I.C., and I would appreciate an appointment to the board. Thank you.
Right, any other citizen comments? All right, at this time, why don't we address some of the issues that were brought up, because we really don't have a spot for that. So as far as the meeting time, I think it's Article 2, that if it's not set by February 15th, then the president sets it. And I think that's exactly what happened, because we were onboarding Mr. Miller and wanted to catch him up to date. So it's not that it needs to be by the 15th. If the board hasn't set one by the 15th, then the president sets one. The bylaws, membership, and appointment are always open for discussion. We had a pretty lengthy discussion about that last year, and I was one of the ones that pushed to expand the board and expand the board voting. Maybe it was 2 years ago where he had that discussion. And that's something that I really wanted to pursue, and there are a number of citizens and a number of my colleagues that gave me pause for that, and I re-examined, but anytime we can talk about that. The records request I can't speak to. The website, who does the updating for the website for the C.I.C.? Is that?
We do.
Okay.
Staff, yeah.
Okay. And I think that probably part of the reason that that's been down is that we haven't had that position, economic development director. We looked for, 12 months for a development director?
Long time.
Yeah. I would anticipate those would be followed up. I think I missed a couple, but I think I missed a lot, but Mr. Mills, maybe you could pick up some.
Sure. Some of the things that I recall, let's see here.
Winning and Planet.
Winning and Planet, yep. Happy to talk about those. So those are for sale by owner. I think that the minutes from the October 26th meeting captures the thinking of the board on that. The board wanted to
Hire a realtor.
sell that property for by owner and post it on the website. Those things have been done. I just learned moments ago that we've received an offer, so we'll have to review that.
And that's the first offer.
That was the first offer.
So I think this board anticipated we'd have to meet early because we'd have so many offers, and that really didn't happen.
Right. Yep, so we've got an offer, and we'll review that and see if more come in, and then bring those to the board and have you guys decide, what you want to do with that. Let's see, D&O insurance is very important. It protects the organization. I don't think that it's duplicative. I think that it's necessary.
So let me ask a question based upon that. Since this is a separate corporation, so really not even a government corporation, that means that it has to be separate, right? Is that what, am I characterizing that correctly?
It's its own thing that conducts business on its own. That's not the liability of the township, it's the liability of the corporation, and that's why we buy that insurance. Typically, in years past, and this is all up to the discretion of the board, but typically, there are 3 township trustee members. That's the 3 of you. You are the core of this organization. You're really the organization. It outlines, the bylaws outline that there are other positions. There's a secretary that keeps minutes, for example. There's a treasurer that takes care of the financials. There's an executive director that serves as the chief administrative officer of the corporation. Those are typically staff members, and typically the executive director is the director of development. When Frank was the director of development, he was the executive director of the C.I.C. When I was the director of development, I was the executive director of the C.I.C. And now Mr. Miller is the director of development, and it made sense to me that he would be the executive director of the C.I.C. So that's sort of why those 3 positions exist, because really those are the positions that do the sort of mundane day in, day out work, right? And so I think that those are kind of necessary. I would say that in years past, there's also been a 7th member of the board that has typically been a resident. For the first number of years, Jim Eckhoff served in that capacity. For, I think it was 2 years, Ms. Wright served in that capacity. And then the past 2 years, the board consisted of just 6 members. I do think that best practice would be to have an odd number, and I think that it does make sense to have someone on the board that has the best interests of the township in mind and can lend their knowledge, skill, and ability to the tasks. So I think it's a good idea to have a 7th, but that, of course, is the discretion of the board. Trying to think of other, if we want to increase our CIC website, just let us know what type of information you'd like to have up there. As I look back at 2021, there wasn't much activity in 2021 in the CIC. I think the CIC could be used for a lot more. I think that we've seen it effectively used in projects like the Duke Operations Center and the Kroger project. I think it could be used in a number of other economic development projects. So I think that I would be supportive of that. And then, what am I missing?
The reason we didn't do winning and Planet and the what's.
I'll make a comment real quick, Matt. I just looked up the Wenning property, and it looks like it transferred on December 17th of 21, and we just haven't had a CIC meeting since then.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. So it's transferred. It's in our
That's
name.
that's on the auditor's website. It's under the name Colerain Township, Hamilton County, C.I.C. is who the owner is now.
Yeah, we own that.
And why did we not use the vacant to side lot?
That we had that discussion as a board,
Right.
and it was determined that instead of having a neighbor just use it as larger yard, wouldn't it be neat if we could get someone to construct a home on there and really improve that property? And I think that there's a market for that. I know Ms. Bowling has been to a number of these meetings, and she has suggested that she would like to do that. I don't see her in the audience tonight, but I have seen her here in the past.
And I think our hope was that it would be a owner-occupied residence and to add to
That'd be great.
the community.
And I do think that the side yard, the vacant lot to side yard program was successful. I remember when that property was a dilapidated greenhouse that was overgrown, and We were able to demolish that property and clear the brush and transition it to a neighbor, and that neighbor has improved the property with a fence and a garage, and, I mean, there are improvements to the property, and that's exactly what we want to see, blight to productive use. I think that that's a case study in how the CIC can be helpful in the community.
And it says, I just looked up the Planet property, and that transferred the same day, December 17th of 21.
There we go.
I think, any other comments?
There were so many questions and points. I wrote down as many as I could. As far as outsourcing to an accounting firm, I think you want an accountant's.
Sure. So we have to prepare financial statements for the auditor every year, and those financial statements are typically prepared by a CPA. And instead of hiring a CPA on our staff and paying them what a CPA would earn, it's better, from my opinion, it's more cost-effective to buy hours of their time rather than a year of their time. And so that's why.
I agree.
Yeah, that's why
I
we
mean,
do
I
that.
think it's important to have somebody with that credential. And as far as losing money on the sale of that side yard property, having lived here my whole life, I distinctly recall going east on Compton Road and seeing that big green two-story house with all the peeling paint that was on that corner, and the lady who bought it lives on Coogan? Chopin?
Yeah.
And that's part of her backyard, and because she was able to put a garage back there, that improved the value of her house. And we're not over there cutting grass or anything, and that's hers to maintain. I'm not too sure about the grass between the edge of the sidewalk and the fence, and I haven't been over there in a couple months I've been through that intersection a bunch of times, but I just haven't noticed. So next time I'm over there, I'll see what it looks like. I'm sure the grass will grow when it starts growing, so we don't have our maintenance cost over there anymore. So.
And there's no blight.
And I have no interest in owning properties that we're not using.
All right, with the board's permission, I'm going to move to new business. A, discussion of CIC bylaws and membership.
Sure. So I just wanted to take this opportunity. We have this conversation just about every 2 years. Excuse me. But it's important to just remind everybody how this works. So per the bylaws, each person has a seat for 2-year terms. And at the end of those 2 years, the board gets reset. And so there will always be the 3 township trustees on the board. So that's who the CIC is at this moment in time. And then there's a need to appoint new members to the CIC. And so that really is just in keeping, that just transitions us into 4B, which is the appointment of township official members and the election of officers. And so, as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 important roles: treasurer, secretary, and executive director. Staff's recommendation is that Mr. Miller become the executive director, Mr. McElravy be the treasurer, and Mr. Springsteen as the secretary of the board. And then the extent to which you would like to grow the number, that is a decision, for you all to make.
In a discussion about changes, Ms. Ulrich wasn't part of that conversation, obviously, 2 years ago, of CIC bylaws and membership. Obviously, that would be done at we can do a follow-up meeting. But at this point, then, is there any motion that the appointment of township official members in election of officers?
Which will be 2 separate things because we need to.
So the appointment of township officials.
Let's start with that. I nominate Matt Wallert to be president of the Community Improvement Corporation. Surprise.
I'll second.
Is that, okay, is that election of officers then that we're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's what's listed first.
Okay. All right. Okay, yep, okay, I'll accept that.
We need to call a vote on that?
Very good. Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
I will nominate Kathy Ulrich to be the vice president.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, sounds like we have a second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay,
Any discussion?
not from me.
Mr. Unger?
Yes?
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
You you said yes for me? Okay, thank you.
It's been a long day.
I got a lot of reading now to do.
You don't get a chance to discuss things outside of these meetings, so enjoy. You'll do great, Kathy.
All right. Okay, Appointment of township officials.
Please reread those names into the record again.
Sure. The staff's recommendation is that Mr. David Miller would be the executive director, Mr. Jeff McElravy be the treasurer, and Mr. Stephen Springsteen be the secretary.
And can we do that as a consent?
For each one individually.
Yeah. all is one.
So I motion that we do as read by Mr. Mills.
I will second it.
Very good. Any discussion? All right, Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Waller,
And only me, yes.
Ms. Ulrich.
Yes.
Very good. And then, if it pleases the board, just for continuity's sake, do you mind if I continue with this agenda and then we
Right.
seat the new
Yep.
group next?
Sure.
Okay, very good. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a motion to accept the financial reports from 2021. Mr. McElravy?
Good evening, Board. Just as with the third quarter, there was no activity for the C.I.C. in the fourth quarter. So for the year, the total revenue to the C.I.C. is 0, and the expenses are $6,979.37. The vast majority of which are the fees that we had to pay the auditor of state for the 2020 audit. That was a total of $4,305 of that total, leaving us with a closing balance for the year, excuse me, of $66,037.31.
And that can be found on page 32. I think there was a comment that that number wasn't in the agenda, but it is.
I thought that the speaker mentioned that it was 66,038. So is it 038 or 037?
It is 66,037.31.
Can I speak to someone in the audience for a second?
Oh,
President?
sure.
So do you contend it's 66,038?
I asked that it be on the agenda.
Okay. That's fine. I wrote down 66,038, so you're right then. It's 66,037.31.
That's correct.
Okay. That's
And
all.
then, can we indicate that that would be in the minutes for this evening? Who's doing the minutes?
Probably Stephen, but I can work with Stephen.
Yeah,
This is all on Waycross being recorded also.
that's right, yeah. But I do want to, let's do have that in the minutes. It is in the board packet as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I've lost track. Do we have a motion to accept financial reports from 2021?
I motion that we accept the financial reports from 2021.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Not from me.
None?
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
All right, moving on to D, a motion to set 2022 CIC meeting schedule. Now, this is in addition to any special meetings that we have, obviously March 8th, which I assume most people are going to vote yes on that, but also May 10th, July 12th, and October 11th is the annual schedule. Are there any motions at this time?
I motion that we have meetings on those dates described by Matt Waller.
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
All right, any items before we have, according to my record, maybe 5 minutes before we start the next meeting?
When you get a chance, I would like a copy of that application. I know it was only submitted to you.
Yes, so I will provide that, and,
Is that the only copy you have, or is there more than?
no, that's the only copy. Make sure maybe we can get a copy for all members of the CIC now that we have a new membership. Any other questions, concerns before we
Not from me.
we have a question from the audience? Sorry. That's all right, we've got 4 minutes.
Are you going to allow residents on the board, or?
Well, that's a discussion, so when we talk about bylaws and memberships, that's a discussion we can have. We had it 2 years ago, and I kind of pushed for that, and by the end, I'd become convinced that through a number of people that was a bad idea. I'm willing to look at it again, and Ms. Ulrich has not even chimed in on that, so that's why I said, when I listed the meetings, I said tentatively for the year, I think there would probably be if there's a community demand for that, that'd be something we'd have. And I know that with Mr. Miller here, there might be other meetings, not to put pressure on him. I know soccer season's coming up. Yeah, there might be other meetings that we'll add too. So the short answer, too late, I know, is that yes, we can add those meetings and have that discussion. Was there a motion? No, there was not one. Okay.
Is it time to adjourn?
Yeah.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting at 5:57 PM.
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Unger?
Yes?
Mr. Waller?
Yes,
And Ms. Zoller?
Yes.
we are adjourned.